They say cats have 9 lives, and I guess Picture Lock does too, as we've made it to our 9th episode. I'll talk with film critic Nell Minow about what it takes to be a movie mom, chair of the Alexandria Film Festival, Patti North, about what it takes to run a film festival, and local filmmakers Victor Nolasco and Stephen Rubio about what it takes to make a mockumentary. All ahead on Picture Lock. Taking my passion of film to a new level, I started my blog, Picture Lock, and recently became a member of the Washington, D.C. Area Film Critics Association this year. My first guest has been critiquing films for years. She writes as Movie Mom on MovieMom.com. You may have also caught her reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, RogerEbert.com, The Chicago Times, USA Today, Slate, Kansas City Star. I can keep going. I say all that to say I'm out of my league right now. Nell, thank you so much for coming on the show and welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Okay, like I told you before, I'm out of my league, but that's all right. I always like to start at the beginning. So, first question, when did you fall in love with film?
You know, I recently found a letter that my dad wrote to my grandfather when I was 4 years old, and it said, "We've just taken Nell to her first movie." It was a Disney movie. And he said now she wants to go to the movies every day. So apparently, apparently I was mad at them that it took them 4 years to get me to my first movie.
Oh, wow.
I've always loved movies, but the real turning point for me was when I was 16 years old, on the last day of school before summer vacation. I was diagnosed with a very severe case of mono, and I was in bed the whole summer. And my parents let me have the little black and white portable TV in my room, and I did nothing but watch movies the whole summer. And I'd always loved movies, but that was when I began to really think about movies and how they were made.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, I wish I knew like specifically what year I started to love it. I know it was since I was a kid too, but that's like an awesome story. What were some of those films that you watched when you were sick with mono?
Sick with mono? Well, the interesting thing about it is that this was, you know, a long, long time ago. This was before cable TV. It was before videos, and certainly before Netflix or the internet or anything like that. I had to watch whatever was on. So if it had been up to me, I would have been, you know, binge watching romantic comedies or whatever I thought was fun back when I was 16. But because I was stuck with whatever was on TV that day, and of course it was all black and white, I was watching a lot of movies from the 30s and 40s that I would not normally have seen, and being introduced to actors and directors that I would not normally have seen.
Right. Man, that's pretty cool. So were there any like favorites that stood out to you? Because like what I want to do is see, how did you go from there to like film criticism? You know, how do you go from fan to actually being a critic?
Well, at that same time, right around the time I was 16 or 17, something really important happened in my life. I lived in Chicago, that's where I grew up, and the Chicago Sun-Times was one of the newspapers that we got. And the Chicago Sun-Times hired a new film critic who was just a few years older than I was. He was in his 20s. His name was Roger Ebert. And I was
I'm geeking out right now. Okay.
I was so excited that somebody who was just a little bit older than I was writing for the newspaper, that it made me think for the first time that that was maybe something that I could do. So I went to my high school paper and I started writing movie reviews for my high school paper. And I can tell you the first movie that I ever wrote a review of, it was a movie starring Martin Sheen. It was his first important role, and it was called The Subject Was Roses, with Patricia Neal and Jack Albertson. Patricia Neal was nominated for an Oscar for that. And so I started reviewing movies for my high school paper and then my college paper, and I studied film in college.
Okay, wow. So you were right there, like right there when all this kind of started to happen, where it's like, film criticism became something that like people could actually do.
Yeah, I knew I was in trouble when the New Yorker would come to our house, and I would run and get it, and I would read the movie reviews before the cartoons. So that's pretty hardcore.
Right.
But yeah, that's true. And something that I did think about when I was in bed with Mono watching these old movies was that it was really exciting to me that I could sort of almost reach back and touch the beginning of film. I mean, I was watching movies. Cary Grant was still making movies when I was growing up, and I could really reach back, and those very same people. Cary Grant was in a movie with Mae West, for goodness sake. You know, I mean,
Right.
I could really sort of get my arms around it, and I could own it in a way that you couldn't say with music or art or anything else.
Right. That's really, that's true. So Movie Mom, how did you come up with the title, and what does it mean to you? And then, of course, let's go into, what you do on moviemom.com.
I graduated from college, then I went to law school, and then I did completely non-movie related things for quite a long time. And I always continued to be very interested in movies. I still wrote about movies every once in a while, but I was busy with other things. Many, many, many years later, now we're talking about 1995, I was really interested in the internet. I was on the internet before the World Wide Web. I was on the internet so long ago that when I would type my name, people would write back, "Are you a girl?" And so I wanted to create a website for myself. Now, in 1995, really there was not one publication or corporation on the web at that time. It was mostly college kids and people in the military with personal websites saying, "Here's a picture of my dog and my coffee pot." You know?
Right.
So I thought, well, I could put up some movie reviews and that would be kind of fun. I had 2 young children at the time, and I used to go to Blockbuster to get movies for them, and there'd be these people walking around with glazed looks on their faces saying, "Is this okay for a child? I don't know. What do you think?"
Right.
And the 16-year-olds behind the counter were no help at all. So I thought, okay, well, that's something I can do. I understand movies very well. I understand children very well. I have a good sense of what a 7-year-old can handle. And I want to be something special. I don't want to say, well, I'm going to be like Roger Ebert. I have to be me. I have to write from myself, and nobody else was really writing that way at that time. And so I couldn't pretend to be, this young hipster type of person from New York. I had to be a suburban mom because that's who I was.
Right.
So fortunately, because I am a lawyer, I got the URL and the trademark on Movie Mom right away.
Nice.
And so I just started writing reviews. So over the next 5 years, the internet happened all around me, and Yahoo called me 5 years later and said, "We'd like a movie critic. You have this archive on the web. Nobody else has anything like that. Would you like to be our critic?" Wow. So I went from just having my own little website where I did my own code to all of a sudden being the movie critic for Yahoo.
What was coding like in 1995?
Very basic. I was very, very proud of myself. I could do embedded links and bullets. That was about as fancy as I got. There were
Nice.
no, little video clips or anything like that.
Right, right. Okay, so some people think that being a film critic is an easy job. Like it's a walk in the park. Oh, you just watch a movie and then you talk about it. But it really isn't. Can you just explain like what we go through as film critics?
Well, not just the fact that I've seen 5 Pokemon movies. The problem is, you end up going to see a lot of movies. You become a movie critic because you love movies, and then you have to end up seeing like 75% bad movies. If you're not a critic, you can pick and choose and just go to the movies that you like.
Right.
And so that's one challenge. But the real challenge is being a movie critic is 40% knowing a lot about movies and 60% knowing a lot about how to write. And I always say, I go to the movies for free. They have to pay me to write about them because that is hard work.
Right.
And you have to write about them in a way that's fresh and inviting and insightful and all of that good stuff, because you can write all you want about movies, but if you want people to pay you to write about movies, it has to be something that people are going to want to read.
Right. You're just giving away nuggets here. Okay, so the first one is, be authentic, right? So
Yeah.
talk about what you know. You said you're a mom, and so you did movie mom.
You have to be yourself.
Right. And then the second one is to actually have a fresh voice, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how about like with turnarounds, and do you deal with that? Like, actually having to turn around after you've seen a movie, turning around, things like that?
Yes. I would like to say that I'm disciplined enough that if I've seen the movie 3 weeks ahead of time, I'll write and stockpile it and everything like that. But I'm just like everybody else. I tend to wait until the deadline.
Yeah, me too.
And so Wednesdays are tough because you got to get the movie reviews up by Thursday night. And I'd like to be more disciplined about it, but I'm not.
That's okay. Who is? So in all your years of being a critic, like what are some of your cool memories, some of the films that you saw, and like, because for me, I'm kind of young at it, right? But I've been doing it my whole life like you, but this is the first time like I'm actually like, I've been to school for it, I'm critiquing these films. But like Gravity, I feel like that's one of the ones that like is gonna be studied in films later on. But have there been some of those films that have come by and you've actually seen it and like while you're watching, you're like, this is amazing, and then 10 years later, we're still talking about it? What do you have any of those?
It's hard to predict all the time. I mean, I interviewed Ridley Scott on the 25th anniversary of Blade Runner, and he pointed out that it was not on 10 best list of the year that it came out. It did not get very good reviews when it first came out. And now, of course, it's as present in our minds as a movie that came out 6 months ago.
Right.
And then there are movies like Avatar, which made a tremendous amount of money, but it doesn't seem to have been pervaded the consciousness at all.
Right.
So it's very difficult to predict. And also, I never give a movie more than an A- when I first see it. If I'm going to think about it for a little while, then I will go back and give it an A or an A+. But I just don't feel that that I can really understand how good a movie is right away. You do want some more time. And the nice thing about reviewing movies online is that when the movie comes out on DVD, I can go back and look at my review and I can add some things that I've thought about since then if I want to. But I have to tell you one funny story, which is that of all the reviews that I've ever done, I think one of the most popular is the one that I wrote the least on. I cannot go to slasher movies or horror movies. I just don't, And because the entire review would be, I went in, I covered my eyes, and then I went home.
All right, I missed it all.
Okay. So I wrote a review of Alien versus Predator that was one sentence. I said, there is no way on earth that I'm going to go to see this movie, so I asked my 19-year-old son to review it for me. And then he wrote the review. And it was such a funny review. And it was so unexpected to my normal readers.
Right.
That's been one of my most popular reviews, even though I didn't write it.
Nice. Ghost right with your child.
That's right.
That's awesome. Okay, so for aspiring critics at home that are watching or listening, what advice would you give your younger self about getting into the film criticism business?
Well, as I said, you really got two things you need to do, and you need to work on both of them. I'm always a little disappointed when I talk to people who want to be movie critics and they haven't really put in the work of really understanding the film history. And so if you haven't seen all of the movies on the AFI Top 100 list, for example, if you haven't done a really thorough study of all the different genres, film noir and 70s and cinema paranoia and all of that, then that is your homework, and you really need to do that. You really, really need to have that background. And then the other thing is you really got to work on your writing. I'm always very disappointed when I hear people talk about how much they want to be film critics, and what they mean is they want to go to a lot of movies and then they want to write, this was awesome,
right.
afterward. That doesn't
why?
help anybody.
Yeah.
You have to, you're in a very competitive world. The good and the bad about the current environment is that anybody can be a movie critic. People say, I want to be a movie critic. I say, okay, I wave my magic wand. You're a movie critic.
Right.
Now you got to write the darn things. And so you got to get out there and just write and write and write and write and write and find your own distinctive voice. And you're going to be competing against everybody that's got a laptop. So you've got to find a way to make your writing really sing.
Yeah, definitely. That's great advice. I was just thinking, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. So you started out and you're in the same city as Roger Ebert. Did you all continue? Like, did you have any more interactions with him over the years?
I didn't meet Roger until many, many, many years later. Roger started a film festival in his hometown of Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. That's 2 towns together, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, where the University of Illinois is. And that's where he grew up and where he went to college. And he started a film festival there. And it used to be called Roger Ebert's Overlooked Film Festival, where instead of being like Toronto or Cannes and showing films that hadn't been released yet, he took films that had come out over the previous year or two that he thought had really been overlooked and highlighted them. And he had the filmmakers come and talk about them and started this festival. It's now called Ebert Fest. And he invited me to, never having met me, he invited me to come out and present one of the films. And he and I therefore got to be very good friends. And in fact, I was in Chicago this week and I visited with his widow.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, Roger Ebert, Siskel and Ebert, obviously at the movies, like that's when I was young, I was watching that and I was like, oh, wow. Little did I know, like it was setting the stage for me later on, like, oh, you can actually do this. But yeah, I mean, those guys had such a profound impact on me just in terms of actually analyzing film like that.
One thing I would really recommend to you if you have not done it, I presume you've seen Citizen Kane.
Of course.
Of course, okay.
I own it. I got it. It's
All right,
stable.
good. All right. Well, if you want to have an extraordinary experience, watch Citizen Kane with Roger's commentary, where he goes shot by shot through the film, and it will just blow your mind because the depth and the insight and the background detail that he brings to that commentary is really one of the greatest experiences I've ever had watching a film.
Oh my goodness, I gotta go home and see if it's on my DVD. That's amazing. Okay, great. So we talked a little bit just now about Blade Runner, Ridley Scott, right? So The Counselor, what did you think? Because it seems as though most critics either we love it or we hate it. I hated it, but I don't know what you thought about it.
Well, tell me first why you hated it.
Okay, so I thought that there's a difference between literary prose and like actual screenwriting format. And Cormac McCarthy, obviously he's had these great films like No Country for Old Men that have been adapted from his books. And I just felt like within the writing, first off, the dialogue, it felt more literary. And many times, like, I just felt like I was like taking an SAT. Like I'd take a break to figure out what did they just say. And then like, once I found it, I was like, okay, I'm back in the movie, but at the same time, like, it just didn't push the story forward. I felt like there's so many scenes that didn't really serve the story. There's just different shock value scenes, like Cameron Diaz on the car, like that. It just what did it have to do with the rest of the movie? So there was so many parts that, like, I just felt like it was totally a misstep in terms of ultimately it's kind of a story about making the wrong decisions. Falling in with the wrong crowd and then suffering those consequences. But like to me, it was just, I think it was the convoluted dialogue and the fact that the story was made up of many stories that didn't have anything to do with each other, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. I think you actually, I didn't hate the movie, but I think you totally nailed exactly what was wrong with it, which is that Cormac McCarthy is a novelist, not a screenwriter.
Right.
Even though some of his movies have been adapted, although All the Pretty Horses was not really a great adaptation, and The Road was a good movie, not a very successful movie. He has not really mastered the concept of showing, not telling.
Right.
And so it is very florid, very over the top. On the other hand, we always are applauding Quentin Tarantino for this very florid, over the top dialogue. So that in and of itself is not a problem. And I kind of enjoyed the dialogue. I guess the reason that I didn't hate it as much as you did is I would much rather see an interesting mess than a mediocre movie, and we see a lot of mediocre movies. Those are the ones where you sort of feel your brain cells kind of melting as you watch.
Yeah.
I did not feel melting brain cells as I watched. I thought there was a lot that was really wrong with it. There were a lot of very heavy-handed metaphors. You have Javier Bardem living in a glass house. Okay.
Right.
The whole thing with the diamond, it's a cautionary diamond. Really? I thought there were a couple of very interesting, sort of the more low-key parts of the movie were the most interesting. The fact that, for example, the whole thing unraveled because of something that not because of some mistake that the counselor made. We never find out his name, of course. He's just called the counselor. But not because of some mistake he made, but because of some completely random thing that happened that was not his fault at all.
Right.
And yet he had to pay the penalty for it. So there were a couple of moments in the movie that I really enjoyed, and I like the visuals in the movie.
Definitely.
So I didn't hate it, but it's not a good movie.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not telling anyone to go see it.
Yeah, it's funny because I've read articles of people that said like it's like one of Ridley Scott's best, and and obviously.
And yes, Variety said it was one of Ridley Scott's best,
Yeah,
but Salon said it was the worst movie ever made. Ever.
I wouldn't give it that. Like
hey, again, I've seen 5 Pokemon movies, and I've seen After Earth, which is so far my worst of the year.
Oh my goodness, I totally forgot that came out this year.
I'm holding on to it. I'm waiting for my end of year awards because it's still the low point for me.
Right.
But that's only because I skipped the Adam Sandler movie this year.
Okay. Yeah, of course, because Adam Sandler.
I always say, any year that Adam Sandler makes a movie, everyone else is playing for second when it comes to worst of the year.
Yeah, that's that's true. All right, so I guess on your site you also recommend DVDs that are coming out, and so Before Midnight. What did you think about that film?
That's one of my favorite films of the year. And before I talk about why I like that movie, I just want to say first that there's never, ever in the history of movies ever been anything like this, where you've taken the same 2 people and charted the course of their relationship over almost 25 years, and had the 2 actors involved in writing the movie, and just continued on with this relationship. So I'm not calling it a trilogy because I'm hoping they're going to keep going.
Right, exactly.
Are you familiar with the Up movies, 7 Up and 4? It's kind of like that in a fictional version.
Right.
And so I love that.
Yeah.
And there are some times when you see a movie from someone, and I'm speaking to you, Sofia Coppola, where seeing a movie by her makes me dislike her previous movies more because I feel like I'm seeing that one trick over again.
Right.
And a lot of what my brain was filling in the empty spaces, I find out were actual empty spaces. But with these movies, each one has made me like the previous ones more, so that I really, really like it. And in terms of understanding what it is to have a relationship over a long term, I just thought this was a beautiful portrayal of that. I'm in a relationship of more than 40 years, so I like movies about long-term relationships.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. That's I've recently actually finished the whole trilogy, but that's what I really loved about it. It was something about it that it was like, oh man, this dialogue, but yeah, it's how we talk to each other, right? Like, so we're just having a conversation, and I'm like, dog, and then I come back to you, and then, we step over each other instead of like, I speak, then you speak, then I speak. And I think it's so authentic. And
we speak around, and we speak indirectly, and we smile sometimes when it's not actually funny.
Right.
And it was, and at the end of the day, it's swooningly romantic. Believe me, there's nothing more romantic than falling in love with someone you're already in love with, and that those kind of waves of love that come to you, and it's somebody you know, and you've seen them at their worst, and you're not filling in the empty spaces. You know what fills out those spaces. Right,
exactly. Okay, so now, are there any other films that are out now that you just think are a must-see?
Well, I think 12 Years a Slave is one that people should see. That's a very important film, a very meaningful film, and very well done.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I love that one as well. I definitely think it's going to be on the top for my list for the year as well. All right, so if you could just let the viewers know where they can find you, where they can read your reviews.
They can find me at moviemom.com. They can email me at moviemom@moviemom.com. And they can find my books on Amazon. That's The Movie Mom's Guide to Family Movies and 101 Must-See Movie Moments.
Awesome. Real quick, because we have a little bit more time.
Okay.
Why do you think, or because I was fascinated with this, you kind of talked about it already, but obviously it's a valuable thing for you to be able to tell parents, hey, you should probably send your kid to see this movie, not this movie. Mm-hmm. And especially like in these days and times where Cameron Diaz can get on top of a car, why do you think that's so important?
I think the most important thing is no bad surprises. And that's what parents want. They want to have some expectation of what their kids are going to see. Now, I've got 2 children, a boy and a girl, and they are very different people. And there are movies that one of them could see at age 7 that the other one could not see at age 7. So the most important thing is you have to know your own child and what their capacity is. And
Right.
my son never gets scared by movies, and I still have to put my hands over my eyes, but he's fine with it. And so I let him see scary movies fairly young. So what I try to do is not say, I'm sorry, nobody under the age of 8 should see this movie. I try to say to parents, here's what's in the movie, and you need to know about it. Now, you probably did not go to see Free Birds.
No, I didn't.
Okay, well, let me just say, that is the single worst idea for a kid's movie I've ever heard in my entire life, and it was a pleasure to be able to warn parents not to go see it. But the idea for that movie is that 2 turkeys go in a time machine. The time machine is voiced by George Takei, which is kind of fun. But they go in a time machine back to the first Thanksgiving to prevent turkey from being served and therefore prevent the slaughter, the genocide of turkeys for hundreds of years. So great, you take your 5-year-old to that movie. He goes to grandma's house for Thanksgiving. She brings out the turkey and he bursts into tears. That's a terrible thing. It's an awful movie. There's a really ugly joke in that movie about a developmentally disabled child. What? Why? Why? So I'm there to prevent those ugly surprises.
Right. Well, now I have a 14-month-old, so I guess I'll be consulting you
I hope so.
as she gets older. I can't wait to take her to her first movie. Now, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you,
I appreciate
Kevin.
it. So.
This is Ben Nell. I play Lefty in Thick, and
I'm Caleb Jackson. I play Detective Morrison in the movie Thick.
And you're watching Picture Lock.
Again, thanks for watching, downloading, and listening to Picture Lock, where we focus on film. A large part of what I want for the show is to give exposure to local and independent filmmakers. My next guest has that same vision and has been doing that with the Alexandria Film Festival in Alexandria, Virginia since its inception 7 years ago. The 2013 Alexandria Film Festival starts this week on Thursday, November 7th and runs through the 10th. Chair of the Alexandria Film Festival, Patti North, I'm sure things are super busy for you right now, but thank you for making time to come on the show, and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin.
My pleasure. So usually I like to start at the beginning. When did you fall in love with film?
Oh gosh, when I was a kid. I grew up in Vermont, and we didn't have a lot of theaters, but I was walking distance from one for a while, and in a way I feel like I have to thank my sister, because my older sister and my younger brother and I would all go to the Saturday matinee, and when my younger brother would start fussing, she would take him home, and I'd just stay there and watch all the rest of the features. So the kids part wasn't good enough for me. I wanted to see all the grown-up stuff too.
That's pretty awesome. I love just talking to people and finding out when they fell in love. I mean, everybody has such a unique story, but it's always a memorable one. Like, you remember when it kind of happened. Okay, so the Alexandria Film Festival started 7 years ago, and you had a part to doing that. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I was on the Alexandria Commission for the Arts at that time. I'm a glass artist as well. And
like blow up glass?
Fuse glass, like I made this piece here.
Nice.
Give myself a little plug.
Go ahead, do it.
But it started to trouble me that we were promoting really the same art that we would have been promoting if we had existed during the Renaissance. You know, we had sculpture and painting, and we had performance and dance and music. And all this digital art was happening all around us. There were really internationally known filmmakers right in Alexandria, and still are, and even more in the general metro area. So I really wanted to put digital art on the radar. And there was also, at the time, the city had an interest in doing an event that had sort of an international flavor. Alexandria is very multicultural. So it led to the establishment of the Alexandria Film Festival.
Okay,
wow. And I stayed involved with it after that. I was a program director for quite a long time, and just last year became the chair.
Well, congratulations on that. That's definitely huge. All right.
Well, huge for entirely volunteer-run organization.
Right, true. So I guess we could hit that. I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but what exactly do you do as the chair? Could you take us through a typical day pre-festival and then during the festival?
Well, it varies a lot because we have throughout the year, we have film events, largely at Beatley Library, but other places too. But it really gets intense during the summer when we are judging films. This year, well over 200 filmmakers submitted films to us. We have to, of course, screen all those films in order to decide which ones to accept. And that's a really fun but also painful process because there's some great films that we just don't have the space to screen. And then it's really a kind of a chaos of, trying to promote it and market it and, getting the material in and scheduling speaker events and
Right.
Raising money. It's a big part of it,
Wow.
whether we like it or not. And actually, I do kind of like it because a film is a collaborative enterprise, but so is a film festival.
Right.
And, you need filmmakers, you need films, you need an audience, you need very good corporate citizens that want to continue to make rich cultural events available to Alexandria and want to play a part in that and want to be known for playing a part in it.
Right, right. Yeah, I've lived in Alexandria for the past 4 years or so, and I myself, unfortunately, don't shoot me. I just found out about the festival, but I thought this is amazing because Alexandria, as you said, does have some great local filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
So since its inception, AFF has grown from 21 films. 40 films last year from 18 countries.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean for the festival's mission? Because obviously you all have a mission too.
Yes, we do have a mission, and it's sort of 2 or 3-fold, if I could remember it exactly. But we want to make Alexandria a place that's known for both having filmmakers and welcoming film as an art form. And we want it to be something that is engaging with the Alexandria audience. If you live in Alexandria, you yourself are an example of this, but Alexandrians are, by Amazon's determination, the most well-read community in the country.
If I do say so myself.
You do say so yourself. That doesn't mean there isn't a place for television and
Right.
webcasting, but and it's a very educated public. So our audience is very sophisticated, and there's a lot of film that plays well here. Another thing not many people know is that theaters, the commercial theaters, and we love them, can only show really a tiny fraction of the films that are made.
Right.
There are Steven Spielberg was once making short films with a Super 8. Filmmakers have to start somewhere, and a lot of the times they'll make shorts, which are sort of their calling card. We've had several filmmakers that have gone on from shorts to feature films, and in part driven somewhat by success that they've had with us. So it's really an exciting medium, and there's so much to offer, and so much that you will only see at a film festival, and for the folks around here, you'll only see it at the Alexandria Film Festival.
Right. All right. So on a personal note, as you said, this is volunteer. What does the film festival mean to you? Because obviously you have to have a passion for it to chair it.
Well, as I said, I've always loved film and I love art, and this brings both of those together. It's really exciting to see the connections that people make with filmmakers and with the sponsors and with the city VIPs, the mayor and the vice mayor. In fact, our vice mayor, Allison Silverberg, she was on the film selection committee the very first year that we had the film festival in 2007, and now she's vice mayor. So you just never know, where things will go.
Right.
It's also really exciting to see these filmmakers kind of in the nascent stage of their careers. The very first film festival in 2007, the winner of the Grand Jury Award that year for a wonderful film called War Dance, won the Oscar this year.
Right.
Yes.
Wow.
They were a Grand Jury
Oh my
Award
goodness,
winner.
mind blown.
And we've had filmmakers that have gone on to win Emmys. So, we love independent film, and we love film that has a point of view, and, film that may not necessarily make it on a commercial level, but you never know where those filmmakers will go.
Right.
And the War Dance filmmakers, Sean and Andrea Fine, Andrea came to the film festival and took questions from the audience. And so the folks that were in the room that day had a really valuable chance to get to know a filmmaker and their work.
Right. Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea. That's amazing. All right, so you have a lot of great things happening this year with the film festival. Can you take us through some of the highlights on the schedule?
Sure. One of the things that I'm really excited about is a conversation with Ben Zeitlin. Ben Zeitlin was the director of Beasts of the Southern Wild, which was nominated for an Oscar, won Sundance, and is just this Cinderella story. This is a very young filmmaker. I think he turned 31 a few weeks ago, who just became a phenomenon coming from completely outside Hollywood to really score big in Tinseltown. So
Right.
he's filming, so we're going to have him by Skype, but he will take questions from the audience, and anybody who has questions can either pose them on Facebook or email them to us at info.alexandriafilm.org.
Okay.
We also have a film called Pied Piper by an Indian filmmaker who was going to be with us, but unfortunately had a death in the family and
no.
is not able to be with us. But it's a really inventive film about a very common sort of man who, in a freak accident, acquires the brain of a donkey and becomes a mythic figure in rural India, eventually rising to national fame. So it's a very interesting kind of mythological story that I think people will really enjoy.
Okay.
We have some really great documentaries, a documentary called Dream about the gentleman, Mr. Bainham, who went to an Anacostia school to give a graduation, it was an assembly. And as he was talking, he started to feel that he wasn't really saying anything that would be very meaningful to these kids who come from the harshest conditions. So in the middle of his speech, he abandoned it and told the kids that anybody who graduated, he would make sure would go to college. And with his own money.
Wow.
This is the man, Stuart Bainham, who owns Manor Care nursing homes and Quality Inns, and very affluent family. And he did exactly that. So this film catches up with them. These people are in their 40s now. It's 37 years later after he made this amazing commitment.
Wow.
And to see what happened to them and where their lives are going. That film is a short film, but it is maybe made into a feature film.
Okay.
And so several of the dreamers, as they are called, will be with us that day.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, it's really exciting. As part of our free programming, we have ticketed programming and we have free programming at the Beatley Library. There's a wonderful documentary called Into Harm's Way, and it's about the West Point class of 1963. When they entered West Point, we were at peace, and when they graduated, we were in the Vietnam conflict.
Oh, wow.
And it's about these men and how they started out and what happened to them as a result of the war and what happened to them later. And a lot of it's very surprising and very uplifting, and I think has modern day lessons about the guys coming back from Afghanistan. And so I think, several of the men and one woman who was in the film are also going to be with us that day.
Okay.
So again, these are all people that you'll be able to mix it up with and ask questions and
Right.
Give them a hard time if you want. That does happen.
Yeah. This sounds really exciting. And just, wow. Since I've started the show, like I said, the part of what I want to do is just expose like this local talent. There's so many filmmakers, and this is proof right here that there's so many great films that are out there that unfortunately we don't get to see on the big screen. And as a film critic, I just had Nell Minow on the show, and we were just talking about how 70% of the films that come on the big screen are just horrible versus a documentary like this. It's amazing. So what documentary or narrative film stands out to you that you think will just be challenging for viewers?
Well, two come to mind. There's one called Hearts and Minds, and it's about PTSD, and I think that will really be eye-opening for viewers. On our opening night, we have a film called Capital Food Fight, and it's about the conflict between these food trucks that are so innovative and
Right.
Very popular, and the brick and mortar restaurants that think that that's maybe a loophole that that they are taking advantage of. So I don't know that anybody will walk out of that film taking one side or the other,
Okay.
but it does what film sort of does best, especially documentary film, which is reveal different perspectives on this one issue and how innovation and establishment can kind of coexist and where they kind of bump up against each other. So I think that's going to be a really interesting film, which is, again, on our opening night. There's another film called We Are the Owners, which is about the trend of company-owned or employee-owned companies, and how much we're seeing the innovation and the kind of great product delivery that those companies are finding by being owned by their own employees.
Right. Wow. Well, it sounds like a lot of great films are going to be at the Alexandria Film Festival this year. Let our viewers know, where they can find more information, where they can buy tickets.
On our website, alexandriafilm.org. The tickets are $15 if you buy them at the door, but you get a discount if you buy them online. They're $12.
Okay. Awesome. And this starts, again, Thursday.
Thursday is opening night.
Right.
Sponsored by Mom's Organic Market, one of our wonderful partners. And the whole festival is also sponsored by the Alexandria Office of the Arts. And we have Alexandria Hyundai, which has been one of our sponsors since day one. We're going to be at the Old Town Theater on Thursday night. We're going to be at the Lyceum, which is a historic building in Alexandria. You get the dual excitement of watching films and seeing their museum, if you like. We're also at the the United Way in Alexandria.
Okay.
And the Beatley Library.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, Patti, thanks for coming on the show. I know things have to be busy. This is the week of, you're gearing up to it, but it sounds like it's going to be awesome. I'm going to be there.
Great. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Thanks again for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thanks, that was really good.
This is Hamilton Whitney, founder of FilmHamster.com, and you're watching Picture Lock.
In 1984, a little film called This Is Spinal Tap came on the scene. Rob Reiner's rock music mockumentary about a fictional heavy metal band became a critically acclaimed hit that laid a path for mockumentaries to follow. 30 years later, the Worthy Brothers are introducing us to their rock mockumentary star, Jackie, with the Jackie Movie. Will it be as great as This Is Spinal Tap? You can find out on November 20th when the film premieres at East Street Cinema in downtown Washington, D.C. Right now, I have the co-directors, Victor Nolasco and Stephen Rubin, in the studio to talk about the film. Fellas, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So you guys have an interesting story about how you met. What's that story?
We were both attending West Virginia University in the early 90s, and we were at a mutual friend's party, and I was there with a couple of my bandmates because I was playing in a band at the time, and we had just seen another band play that had films behind them projected, and we were talking about how cool it would be to have a band not just up there performing, but also have movies projected behind them. A few weeks later, we happened to run into Victor and his friend at a party, got introduced by a mutual friend, and just sort of the conversation started that night, and we just made it happen from that point.
Nice.
Yeah, how it all happened. I had another friend and I. We had a collection of short movies that we'd made, just really simple stuff, straightforward. And we also had a collection of just odd videos of tidbits that we found, different footage. You know, we didn't exactly make it, but being a college student, we didn't really care.
Yeah.
So we just, and it was the most odd and wacky stuff we could think of to put behind them while he played. And the only problem is we didn't have a projector, so the way
College
we
students.
Yeah, well, yeah. So we took advantage of that, being a college student, and we just rented them from the university for projects that we had to do for class.
Yeah.
And would use a white bed sheet as a screen to project behind you.
That's how we started with a white bed sheet, but we upgraded to a shower curtain liner.
Ooh,
yeah,
nice.
So anyone who's looking out there to do that, I recommend a shower curtain liner.
Awesome. Okay, so how did you get in the film? Because as you said, you're in the band, right? And so is it, Victor, are you like more of the film head, or?
Yeah, a little bit. Steve definitely, just as into it right now as me, but I was just always interested in it. It was something to do. I graduated from West Virginia with a degree in philosophy. Not a lot going on in terms of film there, but
yeah.
It's just something that I wanted to do, and it was right there. Obviously, I didn't shoot film then. I shot video, and still kind of don't shoot film anymore now either. But video is right there and so accessible that I was like, I've got to be able to do this, and it's kind of where I am now. It's where we are.
Awesome.
Right, a couple years ago, Victor and I were living near each other in Mount Pleasant in D.C., and he calls me up one day and says, hey, do you want to join this crew for the 48-hour film project? And my wife and I went over there and just sort of hung around the set and just got real interested in the process of making movies and the ideas, and everybody sitting in a room and trying to create something that quickly. And that just sort of triggered, the rebirth, so to say, of the Worthy Brothers in this current format, because there's been a few other people involved over the years, but that kind of kick-started into the Jackie movie. Was the 48-hour projects we did for about, I think Victor did 4, and we were involved in like 2 or 3 of them. So
okay, wow. The Worthy Brothers, how'd you guys get that name?
Well, I'll let Victor I'll let him answer that one.
Well, I'll try not to tell the long story or the short story, but growing up again in West Virginia, watching basketball, you had 2 choices. You were either a Lakers fan or a Celtics fan. And quite frankly, I couldn't cheer for Larry and Ainge and company, not when there's Magic and Kareem and most of all James Worthy. And he's just so smooth on the court, just, he's awesome. So there he was, and I was like, yes, I want to be Worthy. I want to be like James Worthy, and so that's the Worthy Brothers.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I felt like the logo had that LA Lakers theme
yes, definitely.
to it. Yeah,
it definitely did.
And Victor's the original iteration of the Worthy Brothers. When I first met Victor, was his brother and another friend of theirs. So I mean, if there was literally a brother connection,
Okay.
It was a blood
originally,
brother.
and it kind of spawned out.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, cool. So Jackie and the Treehorns, this is an actual music project that inspired the movie, right?
Yes. The funny origin of that was that a friend of mine used to host every month at a place called Polly's at 14th and U Street, which is no longer there, but he used to host an acoustic night for bands or people to come play. And one night he asked me to play, and I had a full band. I just left another band, and I had some acoustic stuff, and I told him to go ahead and book it as a band, almost as a gag, as one person showing up under a band name. So I came up with the name Jackie and the Treehorns as like a joke, so people would think they were coming to see a band, but then there'd just be one guy up there. So, and that was sort of where the origination of the wackiness of what Jackie really stood for. And then we just sort of springboarded that into a whole big, huge concept of ideas that just spiraled into an album and then the movie.
Right.
So. Yeah, we kind of went backwards there. Well, we created a character, and then aside from this character, we knew that there was all these other people, that he had in his life. They were influenced by him, or he influenced them, and so we were like, well, there's a story to tell here, and thus Jackie and the Treehorns, gave birth to the Jackie movie.
So this, let me get this right. This is all spawned off of like a fake character, right?
Absolutely spawned from fakeness, and probably continues into that realm to this day. I mean, yes, it was almost like a gag to start with. It was never really meant to be taken seriously. And then a real band did form, called Jackie and the Treehorns that was around, and then that's when we really started saying, okay, let's give everybody in the band weird names and create all these other characters and make it look like the band was like 20 people when there's really only 3 people, and just started coming up with all these storylines and character names that we would base off of movies and TV show characters that we love, and we just really
one of the driving creative forces behind this this project was we just as friends, over the years there's so many movies and television shows and that we just love, and kind of they're part of our kind of our life. I don't know, not, like you quote movies, everyone quotes a movie. Well, we took it a little step further, and we for example, even the name Jackie and the Treehorns, that's based off the Big Lebowski. You have Jackie Treehorn, but so then we took it a step further. In the album, it's a Jackie and the Treehorn. It's all about me. It's a tribute to Jackie. Okay. That's the name of the album. And the concept, we had all these bands that were covering old Jackie songs, and so like one of the bands is Ron Johnson and the Audio Consultants, which is really a deep shout to Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Now, people who might watch the movie and think, Ron Johnson and the Audio Consultants. Well, if you're a fan of Ridgemont Fast Times, you're going to love it.
Right.
But if you don't know it, it might go over your head.
Wow.
So they're kind of like a bunch of Easter eggs for and deep cut, like Ron Johnson is example. But so to elaborate on what Victor was saying, so to make the concept even crazier, we said, all right, we have this real band that has 9 songs to put on an album. Let's pretend that it's a tribute album and create 8 bands to cover his songs, but it's just the same band. So it's to make it even more confusing. People think that there's 9 different bands, but it's actually just one band pretending to be 9 other people. And we came up with names for all the bands and took photos and wrote little backstories, and those characters are what appear in the movie now.
That's awesome. So that's one of the things that I like to delve into. You guys, obviously you said you did the 48-hour film festival, but this is like your first film, right? First feature-length film, I should say.
Yeah.
So what was the process like? What were some of the challenges that you guys faced as first-time filmmakers?
Lighting, audio, video, writing, screenwriting, acting.
Yeah, pretty much everything. I mean, that's the thing. We made this movie by ourselves. We don't have professional actors in it. It's all our friends. And sometimes it's reflected in the performances, but other times, we feel like some of our friends did a really good job. And the challenges, like you said, was everything. We'd worked on 48-hour films together, but neither of us had really sat in the big chair, so to speak.
Right.
We did for the last 48-hour. It was just him and I and 3 other people really we did a 5-man team. I mean, for 40-hour film fest, people have 10, 20 people, and we did it with 5. And so we decided to scale back our production for this and just do the 2 of us.
Okay.
With an actor.
Right.
So I hadn't really lit anything, but you figured it out.
Yeah.
I think what I've noticed most is now that we're kind of done with the movie is like looking back and thinking about all the things that were fun to do while you're doing them, but they're kind of like a little bit of a struggle, like the lighting or the audio. So now it's like the next project is going to be that much smoother because now we know like how to deal with the lights better and how to deal with the audio better and acting and writing and making things more linear, because the whole ridiculousness of the Jackie story was like we had no sort of ceiling because we could just be as ridiculous as we wanted because it wasn't serious.
Right.
Yeah.
But we tried really hard, almost like Spinal Tap did, is to play it sort of serious though, like kind of play it like this character was real. And Victor said the whole time, I want people to walk away from this movie and think like, number 1, what the hell did I just watch? And number 2, does that guy really exist or not? Like, I have no idea.
Like, we know that a majority of the people who will be in the theater on the 20th will be our friends or cast members and their friends. But eventually it's going to be online. And, sometimes you find things online, and if we can capture someone's imagination for the runtime, I want them to, at the end, be like, wait a second, is this real? Like I just wanted to kind of question, like, this can't be real. This
Right.
is ridiculous. But
So, you know, kind of in touching that, like as a mockumentary, right? Part of it, I'm sure, was like improv, but then also you have to have some kind of story arc. You got to have the storyline in there. So, like, what was the dance between improv and actual screenwriting?
Well, excuse me. Most of it was pretty much line for line of what we wrote in the script. I mean, we tried to make it look. We did sort of come up with a linear overall arc of a story, which is a guy's beginning of his career, makes it big, crashes and burns, and now the tribute album is his big comeback to stardom, like years later, almost like a classic rock.
yeah,
ride.
like you see that in just, you know, like any movie, the Walk the Line has that same up and down and back up.
Right.
Ray, same thing, up and down and back up.
Or any behind the music down at
Yeah.
VH1, you know, then the band hit hard times and the commercial comes and they come back and they're down in the gutter.
Yeah.
So we kind of worked that arc, and then we did a sub-story of Jackie being this guy starting his career. He meets another musician named Django Treehorn, and he forms a team with him, but Django is in love with a starlet Treehorn.
Yeah.
And a love triangle.
So
He joined the band's joined, and then a love triangle pursues, and then things happen, and that's sort of what. So there's two sort of main stories in the movie.
Okay.
A little bit of a love story.
Yeah. Nice. I mean, that's another thing too. Is like we feel like we approached the movie, you know, with all sincerity, and we wanted to. We had a goal, a start, and an end, and a vision that way. But at the same time, we never took ourselves very seriously, and you know, I think that made the process that much easier, and it's been exciting and fun to kind of promote the movie as well.
Right.
Is because we're still kind of running that same angle of like, is this true? Is this real or not?
Yeah.
And you know, I know that there's people who like our page on Facebook, but they don't know what, you know, that it's been shared by a friend or a friend of a friend, and
Right.
so we're looking forward to kind of, I don't know, making people wonder.
Yeah, and the trailer is pretty mysterious as well. So first off, you know, some people, they make films, right, and it just sits on the shelf. But you guys actually are going to be premiering this November 20th at E Street Cinema. So first off, congratulations. That's pretty awesome. I haven't seen one of my films played at E Street Cinema yet, so that's pretty incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How does that feel?
It gives a certain level of legitimacy to the project, I feel like. You know, we had always talked about doing some sort of premiere party, but we thought, oh, we'll rent out a bar somewhere and get our projector out with the shower curtain and do it old school style. But you know, I thought, like, you know, we spent the last year making it. Let's sort of reward ourselves with a big, you know, release party at a real cinema, and it was really cool because the 48 Hour kind of got us when we finally saw something, you know, not on a film behind us or on a TV, but on a big real movie screen. It just sort of makes, you know, you get a little smile on your face. Warts and all, you're kind of happy about it. So, and we just thought, like, let's treat everybody that was involved with this. Everybody did it for free. You know, like nobody was doing this for money. It was just for pure entertainment. So I was like, let's treat the cast and our friends who know about this to like a nice night out at a nice theater at a really cool spot and make it happen there. Yeah, and just it feels great because it's better than showing it at some basement of some bar somewhere.
And you know, going with what Steve's saying, I mean, personally, like, I like the aspect of the fact that we're making this an entirely entertaining evening for everyone to kind of come out. And I mentioned to you previously, you know, the movie starts, you know, it runs, but the entertainment starts as soon as the lights go down. We have a whole experience set up before the feature even starts. Just kind of make it feel like they're, you know, at a quote-unquote real movie.
Yeah, it is a real movie, fellas. So real quick, let's wrap up. What are you currently working on? I know you got something coming up for the future, right?
I'll plug it. We're of course, like, you know, we're snowballing along here. So we're working on a project called Tambourineberg, which is sort of, we're looking at it as a series. We're not sure exactly how long each episode will be, but it's about a guy who's trying to become the world's greatest tambourine player. And the tagline is "Tiny Symbols, Big Dreams," and it's a comedy, as you might imagine, and it's going to be a real goofy kind of thing. But we have some friends that are involved, and we have a little bit of a bigger team this time around that's going to be involved, and we're going to start that on January 1st of 2014 is our launching date to start working on it.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So we're looking forward to it.
All right, so guys, if you can let our viewers know, you know, where they can find out more about Jackie the movie and if they want to get tickets for the show.
They can go to the www.thejackymovie.com.
That's it.
That's
Simple,
it.
right?
Simple
That's
and
it.
easy. There's a big button right there that says purchase tickets.
But you better hurry because they are pretty much close to selling out, I think.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, guys, again, congratulations. I look forward to seeing the film and what you guys do in the future.
Great.
Thank you
for having
Thank
us.
you for having us.
No problem. That's all for this episode. I'd like to thank my guests for coming on the show and giving us insight into their lives and love of film. You can find Picture Lock on Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to check out the website, picturelockshow.com, for movie reviews, news, and if you're interested in being on the show as a guest. Be sure to subscribe to the mailing list on the site as well so that you can win free passes to upcoming screenings in the DMV area. Until next time, I hope you stay locked on film.